Welcome to The Bold. I once opined in this channel that those who will stand strong and confront Kenya Kwanza oppressive policies, those who will be ready to face Ruto head-on and tell him this is wrong and this is right, are the ones that will stand to benefit. But those who will pamper and babysit him in this regime will not have good fruits of Kenya Kwanza administration. In this video, I want us to look at a new trajectory that one of us just raised to me today. And we had a very lengthy discussion about this trajectory. This is KOC, Kikuyu Operation Card. There is a Kikuyu Operation Card on table, and the region is asking who will come out and defend us. It is a very sad scenario because in the multi-party, not in the multi-party, but in the fight for the independence of this country, it is giant men and women that stood against the oppressive colonialists from the region, across and the other areas, to fukuza mzungu. But then decades later, the region is deprived of a voice that can fight for their interests. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to show you some 5 instances here that we narrowed down to, and then we look at what exactly is causing, what is the loophole that Kenya Kwanza is actually exploiting to continue with these aids. I want you to look at this photo. The mzee in the middle there is an 89-year-old Mzee Ngugi Wanyeki. He had been remanded at Industrial Area Prison here in Nairobi for the last 12 days because he was amongst the ones that were accused of fighting for their ancestral land in the Bibi, Naivasha County.
Naviona huu mzee Ngugi Wanyeki anaelekea miaka 90 years old. Na huu mzee alishikwa kutoka kwa shamba yake nyumbani huko upande wa Dabibi, Naivasha. Huu mzee ameishi hapo kwa hiyo shamba, amezaliwa hapo, wamezika wazazi wao, wamezika watu wao kwa hiyo shamba. Lakini kuna mtu amekuja akawaambia ati hiyo shamba yao sasa ya Dabibi kwenye alikuwa anafikiria atamalizia maisha yake ati sasa imenunuliwa na President William Samoei. Na ule alisema hayo ni mbunge wao anaitwa James Kara. Kwani Kenya imefika wapi hata hatuna huruma? Mzee kama huyu ako na miaka 90, enda kumnyang'anya hiyo 1 acre yake yenye yako nayo. Wewe uko na maeka maelfu na maelfu na maelfu. 1 acre ya huyu mzee, 2 acres ya wazee, unaisumbulia nini? Tuko na MCA wao hapa, anaitwa Madam Jane Getuku. Madam Jane Getuku ni yule kiongozi amekataa kabisa, amekataa kuzua uoga na viongozi akina Jane Kihara wamemtisha mpaka anaishi huku Nairobi kwa sababu ya wazee. Alafu niulize, kwani Naivasha na Nakuru hakuna prison hawa watu wanaweza pelekwa? Lazima waletwe hapa Industrial, lazima wapelekwe Kajiado kwa sababu mnawapeleka huko ndio wakuwe na uoga. Mnawapea bond ya juu sana, huyu mzee hawezi pata. Huyu mzee amekuwa mgonjwa na amekuwa prison siku 12 akipigania shamba yake. Na ni huzuni sana ati walikuwa wanatafuta nani anawapiga na nani ananyakua shamba yao, only for the MP Jane Kihara kuja kusema ati hiyo shamba President William Samoei Ruto amenunua. Ni huzuni sana. Nataka kuambia mawakili wote, not only in Mount Kenya, mawakili wote wa Kenya, kama mnafanya kazi ya kusaidia watu, twende tusaidie hawa watu wa Dabibi kwa sababu wanapigana with a president in power. Nataka kushukuru sana mtu anaitwa Jimmy Wanjigi kwa sababu Madam MCA alipofika mwisho akaona hizo pesa wanaikiwa hawezi pata, alitafuta mtu wa kumsaidia, na Jimmy Wanjigi aliamua kulipa hizo pesa zote, thousands of money, millions of money, ndio hawa watu watoke. Na tena nishukuru wakili Mwenda Ajage ambaye mchana yote amekuwa hapa, amekuwa Kajiado, amekuwa Lang'ata, na pia mjue Lang'ata kuna wamama wametoka wanaipata dabibi, wako na watoto wananyonyesha, wamepelekwa huko, wameacha watoto nyumbani. Hata mwingine alikuwa anasema apelekea mtoto wake hata 2 minutes amnyonyeshe.
Now, Naivasha constituency, Nakuru County. So I want you to remember this day when Jen Kihara dared members of the community from Dabibi, those who think that William Ruto has grabbed land from them, to come out and speak out.
Na vile amewaambia ni kwamba hii maneno nimefuatilia. Na vile amesema mimi pia ni vice chair kamati ya mashamba huko parliament. Ile imenilete hapa ndio niwakumbushe mulinichagua. Na kama mulinichagua na kuna shida hapa na hakuna mtu ameingia ofisi yangu, mulichagua watu wangapi kwa ile ballot? Mulichagua mimi MCA, mkachagua senator, women rep, na mkachagua rais, na pia mkachagua governor. Lakini mumelemea tu hapa kwa MCA na hamtaki kuja kudhibitisha maneno ama kusaidiwa. Kwa hivyo ile tunaona ni uongo, na huo uongo umekuwa mbaya kwa sababu nimeona mtu kwa runinga hiyo yake ya Manoti akitusi rais wangu, na ndio nimekuja hapa. Ndio kama kuna shamba ambaye ya mtu hapa rais amechukua, aje hapa nimpeleke kwa rais, ndio amwambie mheshimiwa rais, ulichukua shamba yangu.
So you could see the area MP Jen Kihara coming out to defend the president, that people are just spoiling the name of the president, and he bought that land genuinely. Do you know, this mzee was arrested, and for the last 12 days he's been there in the remand. It took the intervention of Jimmy Wanjigi today in the afternoon for Jimmy Wanjigi to pay for him the bond and 3 others, women, who are also remanded at the Lang'ata prisons. So it took Jimmy Wanjigi, and I think I saw, I think from that was from Saturday. There have been a bit of lobbying here and there. Honorable Cherry Majuis had been trying to lobby around, and I think even that group of Kamwene, I saw people lobbying. But today, they managed to reach out to Wanjigi, a son of the region, who bailed out that mzee. And people I saw people reacting, people asking, how oppressive is it? Because there were so other young people there, but because mzee cannot run. When police come and police want to arrest people, mzee is weak, so he could not run. So we arrested the weak person in that instant. Now, there is a very consistent pattern, because even recently in Murang'a, there was a group of some old women and some elders that went to pray, and allegedly it was just a cultural event. What followed is that they were arrested and even arraigned in court and accused of being members of the defunct Mungiki sect. So that was leveled against these women. It took the intervention of Martha Karua, amongst other and other lawyers that also offered pro bono services, for this Wazis to be released, and they were accused of maybe now coming out to be members of Mungiki. So the operation is not just, and you see that group, that demographic of Wazee is critically important, because there is one thing you need to see into it. This is the group that never voted for the president. It believed that this is the group that we actually were supporting former President Uhuru Kenyatta. Now, 3 other instances. Do you know Ambassador Kimani was Kenyan permanent representative in the UN? He was dropped recently and another gentleman given that position. It also raised eyebrows. What was the urgency, despite the fact that Ambassador Kimani was one of the most successful fellows in that docket and had really won himself international accolades representing Kenya in the space. Murang'a car bar owners even threatened to sue the state over closure of their bars under the guise of fighting illicit brew. And I personally believe that the fight against illicit brew is very genuine. It should be very genuine, and it should be done in a manner that we deal with the problem. We don't deal with people. In fact, if the problem is alcoholism, we need to find out, is it the availability of alcohol? Is it just a societal breakdown? So that we stop harassing people who are operating bars. Because honestly, there is no difference between a bar operating in CBD and a bar operating in Murang'a town if both of them are just selling the modern liquor. So they even closed down businesses. And in fact, the irony in it is these fellows were even asked to, their licenses were revoked, and then they were asked to reapply. So in reapplying, they even paid. Then after paying a month later, you're told to close. Simply because Rigathi team just did a very pedestrian strategy of rationing bars. So that in a town you cannot have more than, 5 or 3. Is rationing of bars a solution? They're simply trying to minimize the amount and the supply of liquor. While in real sense, how does controlling supply of liquor help to tame illicit brew? Because what is illicit? Illicit ni ile mbaya yenye mtu akikunywa haoni macho, na mtu akikunywa aistembea. Illicit is even illegal. So there should be a difference between illicit and illegal. We've illegalized every bar owner, every bar under the guise of illicit brew. And in fact, some of them are even saying that there are some, after that rationing, the criteria being used to make others remain and others be closed down is proximity to power. So if there is someone working in the county and is also operating bar within the county, he is able to get his way and ensure that other bars are closed, so that even creates a monopoly market. And lastly, the farmers tax produce. Mount Kenya is one of the agricultural region that thrives in agriculture. Coffee, tea, macadamia, and you can name them. Milk, and you can name them. So when farm tax produce started, the first activation by KRA was done in Murang'a, and it backfired. And avocado farmers even convened a meeting with Rigathi Gachagua today just to try to explain about the process, or rather what will happen next. So this is a very genuine concern, and it is something happening now. What is the loophole that William Ruto is exploiting? That is what I want to explain, because maybe they rather have to blame themselves. Some of these things, as much as you want to sympathize, but you also have to blame yourself in some instances. Because, number one, the first loophole is Rigathi Gachagua, who is the second in command in the country and coming from the region, has been rendered vulnerable. And Ruto is simply exploiting the vulnerability of Rigathi Gachagua. And you know how he was rendered vulnerable? When before this election, Rigathi speaks about how if things did not go their way, then he would be in jail. But what he's not telling you is that so many cases have been dropped on him. There's 1.5 billion land around the airport. There's some breakthrough and some other corruption cases that were hanging. So all those cases have been dropped now. So those are some of the favors that William Ruto has dangled in his way. I want to believe there could be others, maybe tenders here and there, that William Ruto has dangled his way. Now these tenders are the traps. So this means he has to worship William Ruto. If there is a man that should confront William Ruto, then within UDA, then that should be Rigathi Gachagua. But Rigathi Gachagua has also become very vulnerable. And in fact, the recent fight on who is going to be the kingpin, the running mate between Ndindi Nyoro and him, is part of the wider scheme that is rendering him vulnerable. Number two, Mount Kenya made a big mistake, and this is a mistake that they will regret. Immediately after elections, you need to understand that, of course, after elections, people react differently. There are those who are celebrating, there are those who are also mourning, but at the end of the day, life goes back to normal. Now, do you know that Kenyans reconciled with the development that William Ruto is the president, and it is no longer in contestation whether William Ruto is legitimate or not. We are no longer talking about it. But the region, the regional leaders have engaged in a very vicious fight to ensure they suppress Uhuru Kenyatta. Because according to them, Uhuru Kenyatta influence will have some negative impact on their politics. And that's a big problem. If there is a man that they would have even embraced and coalesced around him, that man is Uhuru Kenyatta. Because imagine if they coalesce around Uhuru Kenyatta and something is wrong. If Uhuru Kenyatta speaks, William Ruto trembles. Yes. And you will see, whenever Uhuru Kenyatta makes a statement, even in the far end county of Kitui or Marsabit or where, you will see State House mandarins trembling and trying to find ways on how they can respond. So the fact that they have always been struggling to silence and to suppress Uhuru Kenyatta is a big problem. And William Ruto knows very well that as a former president, Uhuru Kenyatta enjoys command across the country. You cannot compare the popularity of Uhuru Kenyatta and even Rigathi Gachagua. You cannot. He served as the president, he served his term for 10 years. He was the person leading this country. You cannot take that away from him. So the moment these leaders try now to malign the name and try to degrade Uhuru Kenyatta, they're shooting themselves in the foot. The person that should then be coming out to speak out and say, this is wrong, that person should be Uhuru Kenyatta. Number three, I think there is a succession positioning. And that succession position, there is a clique of politicians who believe William Ruto will support them. Kumi yangu, kumi yako. They believe there is a kumi yangu, kumi yako on paper. So we don't want to sabotage. We don't want to have a personal difference with William Ruto because we believe that after Ruto it is us. Well, in real sense, I can speak this without fear of contradiction. William Ruto transition is starting in 2027. It might end in 2027 or it might end in 2032. I keep on repeating that. But that whoever will defeat William Ruto, whoever will succeed William Ruto, must be away from him. All these fellows around him cannot succeed him. Cannot. It must be somewhere, someone away from him. I think the last thing is the suppression of church council. And the church was suppressed after being used for politics and pulpits and all that. They actually went silent. So ladies and gentlemen, that is my take on this development. And I think Mount Kenya made a very big problem because how could it be that all of a sudden the region that you touted and you spent many days in Mount Kenya, these are the people that sang and wailed. How is it that an oppression card is being leveled against them, is targeting them? The oppression vector is pointing towards Mount Kenya. It's a very devastating situation, but again, that's the nature of our politics. There is a big difference between politics and governance. In politics, you play the good gentleman, but in governance, you find out that there is another side of the state. Thank you.